Hi, I'm Bob LaRosa. Welcome to Fix My Hog. I'd like to take a moment and just go over one of my biggest pet peeves, mislengthened cables. Whether you go to a braided or you go to a clear coat braided or you're just doing a factory black replacement cable, if you happen to change bars, whatever the reason may be, there's no reason whatsoever that your cable should be extremely long or dangerously short. When I say dangerously short, you don't want a cable that's too short when you go left or right lock that it binds or kinks, especially on the clutch or the throttle and idle cable. What I'll typically do, I'll put the existing cable in its normal position and route it correctly. Even though it may come up short, going to the component, in this case would be the throttle body, on a throttle and idle cable setup, I'll use my flexible wire. I can either tuck it into the rubber adjuster cover boot, or I can use a little bit of masking tape to just tape it into position. And then I can chase the wire, my adjustable wire, down the length of the throttle and idle cable and take the flexible wire right to where its final point of contact should be. I can hold it and then mark it with my tape. From there I can take the flexible wire, lay it out on a flat surface, and I'll hold it in place. I like to use 2 magnets. And I can get an exact measurement of what my new cable length should be. Just a quick note, each manufacturer has a different definition of what overall cable length is. Some do include the elbows on the throttle and idle cable. Some do not. They're only measuring casing length. So be aware of what manufacturer you're purchasing from and what they consider overall length of the cable that you're purchasing. Again, you need to remember, cables are critical. They control proper throttle function, clutch function, and braking function, whether it be front brake line or rear. The same with the flexible wire applies to brake lines. You can physically take this flexible wire, attach it to the front brake line at the banjo bolt, and then chase the path that you want the brake line to go right down to the caliper. Lay the flexible wire out on a flat surface, get your final measurement, and order correct length cables the right way the first time. The same will apply with the clutch cable. Now, clutch cables can be a little bit tricky because out of the array of cables and lines on a motorcycle, the clutch cable typically travels the longest path. It'll leave the clutch perch, it'll wind up in front of or behind the bars, it'll make its way down the down tube, then cross over under the engine, above the engine, behind the regulator, depending on the path it takes, into the clutch end cover. Make sure, no matter what cable or line you're replacing, you check your final measurements at full right and full left lock. You don't want a cable to look very nice aesthetically, but then you turn to right lock and a clutch cable gets very tight. It can be dangerous, and chances are if the cable's too short or too long, not only won't it function correctly, but it'll work worse than the cable or line that you're trying to replace. Aesthetically, when you take the extra time and effort to do a handlebar change or a front fork change, or you're just replacing cables because of age or wear, make sure you spend the time to measure the length correctly. Of course, if it is a factory configured motorcycle and all you're doing is replacing the cable because it's worn or it got damaged for some reason, you can always remove the stock cable, measure that cable, and replace it with the same exact length. But if there are instances right from the factory where cables aren't routed the way you would prefer, let's say this clutch cable, you opted to change the direction that it heads underneath the motorcycle, whether it be jumping it up above the engine case under the oil filter or removing it from that position and going down lower on the frame. Always take into account you need to add or subtract that additional length from your final cable measurement.